being able to get people in the mindset of like being present is so hard as is offset. So
True,
it's like,
just in life, yeah.
And then now you're gonna get on set and you're gonna ask like any actor ever to be like, hey, can you be present in this moment? It's like, no, actually I have 4 million things on my mind.
Yeah, or just like, I feel like anxiety is like much more normal, and like having any kind of improv, like in a classroom setting or like acting in a class is like fucking scary and like shitty. And so it's kind of like that.
It gets to a point where you just done so much shit that requires like so much money, and it just gets to a point where you're just like, what do I gotta do to make something in one night? You know, honestly, some of my best work has been done in one night like this, you know? And it's because of you and Lee, bro. Ripley, bro's got the flu. But here we are. We got the OG, the creator with us. Yeah, but what makes like an improv different from like a script, because the whole thing, like we wrote a script for it, but it wasn't like, you know, it had to be that, you know? It had to be the exact lines of dialogue. Being able to act in that, you know, how do you come up with all these improv lines?
Honestly, after all the improvs we've done, I feel like I've done more of those maybe than the scripted stuff. Yeah. So like sometimes that's like what acting sometimes feels like to me, which is not what it is.
Do they blend?
It's supposed to be.
Does like the improv stuff like blend with the scripted stuff?
Yeah,
oh, dude, you see?
Yeah, I have to be careful because I'm like, now I like making my own shit. Like someone give me a script and I'm like, yeah, but these words are optional. Like, no, they're not.
I'm not sure if you remember this, but we were just, it was on the bridge, but it was at the lower part, and before we even shot anything, it was just me, you, and Lee just talking about the script.
Yeah.
And it felt almost like we knew what we were talking about so much, in the sense where we were able to get into the weeds of it without actually talking about like what the surface level idea of it was.
I remember actually like Lee kind of being like, oh yeah, like let's get into it. Yeah. And I was kind of like, shut the fuck up. Like I want to just, I get it. And I think I'm stupid like that. But I think we kind of have done a few things together. So I'm like, I was like, I think we know what we're doing. And I'm always like, I don't want to rehearse it. I just do it, you know, it's just obnoxious. But well,
but I don't think that's obnoxious.
And that probably did help actually. Even though I think I remember myself being like, I don't need to fucking talk about it, you know? But that's funny, I mean, there's times where it's just like, it's less about talking about it to make sure that you get what's getting across from the script as an actor. It's more about just making sure that we're on the same page. Yeah, this one is like, we filmed it super chronologically, so like I felt like I started to get into it the more, and then like, when there's that like uncomfortable moment at the end, that like climax or whatever, you know, like I felt like I had built it up, and then you kind of get there naturally.
Chronologically, so it's like, what do you do in an improv? If you're like not making stuff up as you go, you know, sometimes we write a little script, sometimes we don't, but like to shoot something chronologically, especially in improv, it's kind of mandatory. You know, have we ever shot something
I don't think so,
that wasn't chronological in an improv?
Really, no.
It's like, so that's different, you know, and when I'm on set, it's like, well, what's going to save us the most time? What's going to give us the most time to light things? What's going to give us the most time to give as many takes to the actors as possible?
Yeah.
And that sometimes, not sometimes, but almost all the time, you're going to be shooting stuff out of order. But for improvs, you're kind of like putting yourself in a box of like, look, we're figuring this out as we go externally, maybe not internally, right? Because the idea of Getaway Driver was going back to about, you know, how I grew up and how I wanted to be around people that probably weren't the best influence.
You like that one a lot. That was like kind of like some other stuff that has been like big projects that you've done. Yeah. Versus this was like a 3-hour thing, but it ended up being like, this is my fucking life, like it hit you. So that's
You know, I spent time motion tracking for the first time, blurring out your guys' faces. I did a sky replacement.
Didn't that take like fucking 12 hours?
It took 12 hours. It took me a whole night because it was my first time doing it. I'm sure it took a VFX artist that's been doing it for a while. I'm sure it takes them 4 max, right? Sure. But for me, it's the first time. When you find a film where it's like, I'm not gonna hire someone to blur their faces, I'm gonna do that myself and learn it. That's how you know you're really passionate for something. And Getaway Driver, I had a lot of those moments. I did a whole sky replacement for this wide right here. You won't see it in this. I'm not doing another sky replacement, guys. It's not happening.
You said that, Or you showed me the pictures and I was like, whoa. I was like, okay, that's
that wasn't there.
Sick. For like an actor, it's cool because we kind of like, you made the script, but then we talked about it together and we are like not so different, you know? So it's like talking about being shitheads in high school and like stealing beer and and then, you know, we just kind of riffed as we're walking down. We're like, oh yeah, Peter went to ASU or whatever.
That was fully improv.
Yeah, I guess it helps to sort of have like a group of people you kind of know and relate to a little bit, because you can just, you have those shared experiences and things you can talk about.
Yeah. Growing up for me, dude, it's like I had a bunch of assholes for friends, and in the best way, I still keep in contact with a lot of them. I'm big on like, just because you're an asshole doesn't mean you're a bad person.
Yeah,
you know?
Everybody has.
Yeah, everyone's an asshole.
Yeah, everyone's an asshole, and you always have asshole friends, but
they held a special place.
And sometimes I've been an asshole to my friend, and vice versa. Like,
you've been an asshole to me.
Yeah, for sure.
I've been an asshole to you.
I have friends who we would always go to their house and we just trashed. That was the hangout spot. And then once he came to mine and just was being a fucking dick, and I was like, fuck, like,
you unlocked empathy that night.
I can't do anything about, like, what am I gonna do? Be like, stop, and he'd be like, oh, what? Like, do the same shit I do. I'm like, wait, no.
That's a good point. Yeah. I just got a text from a friend that I used to hang out with all the time back in high school and through college a bit. He was just like checking in.
But that's like a nice friend thing. I don't have any friends that, or I don't, I should, but I don't text that many of my old friends like, just checking in, like.
Really? Yeah.
No, I've had friends be like, you should check in on this guy, and I'm like, no. Yeah. I'm like, I probably should, but.
The people that I grew up with, and I'm just like, we don't talk anymore. Does that make them really my friends? Does that make them assholes? I don't know, because they're still reaching out to me every now and again. And just like you, I don't feel the need to do that. So does that make me the asshole?
Dude, I always thought about like my dad as an adult when I was a kid, and the fact that he like didn't have like that many friends. Like most dads are like going to work and they don't like have like a big group of friends like you do as a kid. And I was like, I remember thinking like, I'm gonna stay with my boys forever. Like, I'm gonna have my homies every night. We're gonna be hanging out still. And so I don't know, I think that might just be a part of life too. You know, that weird like awkward like growing apart. And in Getaway Driver, there's some of those little lines where, oh, I went to this school. You can tell they're like retreading all this like lost ground.
Yeah,
and,
Lee's talking about how he's doing all these things that involve him getting away from his hometown.
I forgot too. I'm kind of like, I'm not a loser, but like I'm like, I'm still here.
Yeah.
He's like doing all this stuff.
That can be seen as a loser though.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
I don't think your character's a loser at all. I don't say that because you're pretty much my stand-in in it. But I say that. I say that because I think he's just on a different path that ends up staying here, you know, and that's not a bad thing.
For sure. The way I remember playing it though, like I felt like my guy was like a little bit insecure compared to Lee, or you know, he's talking about his accolades and like internships or college, and I'm like, yeah, it's cool here. You know, that comparison is the thief of joy.
It feels false.
Clip
if
that.
Your idea was, we swapped you guys' roles about 15 minutes in. Did you remember that?
It would be easier for me to do Lee's role.
Yeah.
And then you were like,
why is that though?
I think maybe because I'm like I'm like the one in power. Maybe I just wanted to be that. I don't know.
You used to be characters that are just in power.
I don't know, like the one.
But
then as soon as you said I want to switch, I was like, all right, fuck it. I don't want to be like put myself in a box. So yeah, let's try.
Yeah.
Let's try.
Thank God we did. For me, it's like I've yet to really gain that feeling of being on my own in my life, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like for you to put yourself in a character that's essentially my stand-in of being so dependent.
Yeah.
You know?
Like sometimes I might get that sense of, oh, I'm paying my bills, I pay rent, I'm on my own. But then other times, if, you know, my dad helps me out with a bill or something, then I'm like, oh, I'm a fucking loser. Or, you know, like you get those back and forth, no matter what your context is. I feel like you're gonna feel kind of like gray, or like you're gonna oscillate between, oh, I don't know. You never feel like completely independent, I would say.
Yeah.
Maybe some people do. Me personally, at least.
You see, but you're able to say that. I can't yet.
I guess as an actor, though, it's always, you can tap into that.
Yeah.
But
because you were there at one point in your life, so
for sure.
When it comes to playing a role, it doesn't depend about where you are currently. It depends about where you were, you know, before. You're able to tap into that because of an experience you had in the past.
Yeah, or maybe a few months, if I felt bad about myself, or so I'm like, oh, you know, yeah, you always will have maybe like inflated notions of yourself, or like deflated, like, oh, right now I feel really bad about, like, maybe I'm not as independent as I want to be, and then other times you're like, no, I'm actually a boss. Like, you know, you could tap into that, or, you know, 5 years ago or a month ago, whatever.
Yeah, whatever it may be. It makes me feel for you, because for me, I get to stay behind a camera. Specifically for actors, it's like everything that's may have went wrong in your life, or everything that you feel like you could have done better at. You know that feeling, and you have to like remember that feeling. So when it comes to acting, you know, I have so much respect for you and anyone that I get the privilege of being able to direct. I just know that everything that you're saying or doing is coming from a place that was real at one point in your life.
It does feel like therapeutic, I think, because it's like you're gonna have those feelings, and
you get
like
to revisit it.
Yeah, and like for fun. And like for a project.
In a positive perspective.
Yeah, and like with intentionality for my craft, whatever you want to fucking call it, you know, for like, just with intention, and you're trying to create something out of it. So like, it always feels like therapeutic for me.
For those past experiences of doing dumb shit when you were young, were you granted a new perspective on it with this film at all, or were you just kind of like able to make more sense of it?
Yeah, I would say so a little bit. In my real life, I was always kind of like at the front of the action, or like wanted. I was a little bit more of like the crazier friend. But no, it made me think about my own friends who I've maybe like grown apart from. I always think about like when you were in school, in high school or whatever, in middle school, like you and your friends like bond over like not fucking with the teacher, or like being in the same friend, like fuck all those other, the cool kids, or like fuck these nerds, or like whatever. And then when you're out of school, you're just out in the wilderness, you're out in the world, and you run and you see these people, and you don't have those same like bonds that have literally been forged because you are like in detention, or you're in the same friend group, or you're in the same like club or sports team, and then you really do just see each other as like human beings, and sometimes there's not that much else keeping you guys friends, kind of.
I'm very glad to hear that, because that's exactly what Getaway Driver is.
It kind of does make my character neurotic, and it's almost like this is a struggle, like he did sort of get iced out, or maybe he feels bad about himself, but it's also like, dude, just relax. Like he's all fucking like pissed off, and he feels like this guy doesn't really like me, but the other character's nice the whole time. So
he's nice the whole time, and then
funny.
Because it means everything to your character, and it means nothing to Lee's. That's the thing, you know? And that handshake, I was just like, we were deciding about how to do it, and we actually talked about it for about 15 minutes about what is like, there has to be some sort of gesture at the very end of it. And we settled on a handshake because it was like, what is the most like, you are an acquaintance, thing you can do. And I was like, well, that's a handshake.
But he's like redefining the parameters. Like,
this is our relationship.
I have to keep you at a distance.
You're an
You've hurt me.
And it's so big for your character, right?
Yeah. It's also like some weird incel shit to do though. But maybe he needs to get it together. Yeah, take a step back.
Yeah.
Reassess. Maybe not you, but the way I played it, I sort of had a weird like incel rage boiling inside me.
That's exactly what it is, though. I think it truly is me, People have said, this might be the most honest thing you've written. There's obvious thought and effort being put into that, right? So when you say it's like, oh, no, that was just like my character. No, I think in a way that was me. There's real feelings from me that I was just like, this is a big deal for me. For Lee's character, he's kind of like, yeah, hope you're doing good at the end. Here's a handshake. Okay, anyway, bye. You've always been a handful. But for me, it's like, I've always been a handful, because I've always wanted to create a friendship that is like worth keeping, as opposed to someone to pass the time with. Nowadays, I feel like I've definitely found that, and growing up, I think people just haven't grown enough to want that, and I feel like I've just either A, grown faster than other people, or B, am really fucking weird.